Hi guys, Oliver here from Spitfire Audio with some tips and tricks to write for a string quartet. I was just commissioned to write a short piece of music for a cocktail party scene. So there was a string quartet playing a bit of music in the background, and they asked me on a very tight turnaround to deliver some music in just a few hours. And I agreed to do it as the reference tracks came through, and they've asked me to create a Haydn/Beethoven sounding track. So off I went, trying to sound like one of our greatest composers in history. I did some research, some analysis of their score, and I've chosen one of the scores. I'll show it to you in a second. It's a Haydn piece. It's not too busy because there's a bit of talking going on in that scene, so it can't be a very busy sounding quartet piece. So, but first of all, I want to share with you some of my thoughts and approaches when writing for a string quartet. So I think it's very important to have a melody, repetitions and variations of it. The harmony, of course, is important, your chords, if you will. And then the rhythm or the rhythmical elements, repetitions and variations of it as well. And one of the main pieces I was just mentioning, that was my inspiration, was this string quartet piece by Haydn. And I didn't look at it to exactly copy what he's done, of course, but just to get some ideas of how he arranged those four instruments together. So let's take a look at the melody, for example. He's got this motif here, and if I look further down, I can see this motif coming back over and over again in different variations and harmonic constellations. So here it's descending, then here it's ascending, and then on the second page we have a similar kind of phrase, but it's doubled up by the second violin, and again here it's a semitone lower. Then I've got another phrase here played by the viola and the cello, and if I remember correctly, up here this phrase is introduced by the second violin up there. So something that I noticed was that when looking at individual bars, it's never really complicated. It's the whole piece and constellation and interplay between harmony and melody that make the whole piece exciting and interesting. So I'm just going to play you my piece, see what you think, how I've applied this. I've used our Sacconi string quartet, perfect library for this occasion, beautifully recorded in the Wigmore Hall. You have all different instruments separately, so all solo instruments separately, and I've mainly used our playable patches, so the legatos and the staccatos, etc. is very nicely programmed for you. You just got to play it in, and I like doing that myself, so it gives a feeling of four individual players. I obviously go in and program a little bit of the dynamics and expression, and if necessary a bit of quantizing in case I've played out of time. So enough talking, let me show you the piece. I've written down up here the chords so you can follow it, and I'm also going to show you the MIDI information without all this messy modulation there. So here we go. So something a little bit funny going on here. I'll explain you what my intentions were, but I might have to tweak this a little bit after the tutorial. So my main motif are these three notes. So my piece is in 3/4, and it's these three ascending notes. So if I just get up the ensemble, so the Sacconi ensemble, very beautifully arranged. You've got the whole quartet under your fingertips. I like to kind of draft out things with this patch. So this kind of ascending three-note motif, you can hear that all over the piece. So starting with it, repeating it here, and then here going a third up. So here it's just in the viola and in the cello. So it does like a little bit of an answer to what's happened there. Again, taking this kind of inspiration here with a call and answer, and then further back I have variations of it. Coming up again. And then here again. And that's my whole piece is a little bit based on that and those kind of chords. So I'm not sure whether you followed up here, but it's always approaching a new chord. It's either going back to the tonic, F major, or it's going to the fourth step, B major, or it's going to the fifth step, my dominant chord, the C7 chord. Let's take it from the top and see what's going on exactly. Zooming in here for you on the MIDI information. So the cello does a counter movement, so the viola and the second violin are going up, and the cello does a little bit of a counter movement there. And then the viola is playing the first, just kind of a response to that first phrase. And I'm implying the fourth step, arpeggiating this chord here, B flat, and then going back to the tonic, landing on C there, which is the fifth note of the F major. And then doing exactly the same on second violin and viola as I already did, but then the cello part is changing it a little bit, answering to what the viola has played. If you listen carefully to the cello, so it's almost like an echo. And then the violin 1 is coming in. Again, here I'm using the playable patches. Yeah, I absolutely love these. I'm using the stereo and the tree mic. I get to the mixing right at the end, but stereo and tree mic specifically for this setting because I don't want it really close because it's got to sit somewhere in the room, in the lobby behind all the conversation that is going on. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to tell you which project it is or show you the picture. Hopefully we'll be able to. Anyway, so the melody is coming in here. And I'm starting the melody with a note that is out of key, basically. So it's an E flat, and I'm implying here an F7 dominant chord, which is not in a scale of F major 7. It's a subdominant, so it's the dominant of the fourth chord of the F major scale. So it's dominant to the B flat major, if you follow me. And then here, coming back in but a third up, as mentioned. And the melody does a repetition, just lower. So if we zoom in here. Starting on E flat, and then here starting on C. So what's going on down here? I'm implying a new rhythm, or I'm introducing a new rhythm. So these just very plain and simple quarter note staccatos in the viola and cello. But before there wasn't really kind of a root that was felt. So we're kind of up in the air a little bit, even going out of key or modulating there. And then the first time where it like grabs you, and it's like, oh, okay, this is home, F major. Playing this in octaves, again, stolen a little bit from here, Haydn's idea, but... And then here, elevating to the fourth step, to the B flat. And then elevating to the fifth dominant chord, C7, and then doing a turnaround. So a turnaround is chord progression that brings you back home to the tonic. So what's going on? Something very interesting here is the violin 2 part. If we listen to this separately, it joins the viola and the cello in the accompany kind of part. So these three ascending notes. Then it doubles up the violin to create a bit of a stronger melodic impact. And then it joins back to the viola and the cello, which have at that point changed to the staccato bits. So. And then joining these guys, or staying with these guys, basically, with viola and cello. and then creating a counter melody to the violin 1. If we look at the MIDI information here, so you get a bit of an idea what I'm doing. So I'm on C7 dominant chords, here turnaround, and here literally just arpeggiating B flat, which is the 7th, G, E, and then for the next bar, I'm just changing the inversion, going C, B flat, G, and then landing on the tonic, on the 3rd of the tonic, on the A. That's what I was talking about before. I think it's important to kind of give hand in hands with like melodies, or like passing melodies around, having different instruments joining different parts, and that's how you create interest, even though the chord progression is really, really simple. And the first violin does something similar as well. So here it joins these three notes there, implying or reminding of that main motif before it does these kind of faster notes or trill-like notes there. And then I'm giving a breather, landing on the tonic. So I turn around, bring myself back home, and then here we go. Next part is ready. So again, these 3 notes. So they were down here in the, so with context, they started in the higher register, then they went into the lower register, and now for the big proud moment, I'm giving a bit of oomph again with the higher register, these 3 notes. And then I'm using all 3 instruments, minus the first violin, to create this really, it's almost like a march there. So I have the 3 notes. So I'm doing something slightly different with the viola and the cello there, just in octaves. On the dominant chords, just going down the scale. And instead of just doing those 3 simple notes, I'm doing a bit of a different rhythm, I guess, and motif. And then I have the 2 high notes, or the 2 higher instruments. And that sounds quite nice together. And then I have these staccato notes, and I'm also introducing a little bit of a new rhythmical element with the second violin. Doing all the notes. And then the cello as well joins the first violin here, or joins, kind of complements it with some interesting rhythms, or falls, triplet falls. Let's do all the cello here. And then the violin 1 actually joins these staccatos, if you pay attention. So here as well, first violin joining these 3 ascending notes, then creating the melody, which is actually the same melody as before. So hang on, I'm using a trill as a separate patch, so I didn't play it in because we have these wonderfully recorded trills here. So I might as well use those. And then if you recall this part here, so doing a bit of a response there, slight different variation of that motif because it has a different harmonic structure. Again, going back to this, just having this in mind. It's not exactly the same notes, but just having these motifs or these figures in head and being inspired by this kind of arrangement by Haydn. Again, those 3 notes. That are my main motif. And then here in the low notes, I'm doing an answer to the melody. So here my melody. and then it can barely finish the melody, going right back into my 3-note trademark melody, I guess. And then what I was saying before, I might need to change something here, but what my intention is to repeat what happens here. I need to change the notes a little bit because I'm using those 3 notes to ascend to my C7 dominant chord, but something just doesn't sit quite right. I won't bore you with it trying to find the right combination, but that's the idea anyway. And then its own thing, an ending, again, turn around. Quite a typical one. If I just play you these simple chords here. C7. You could end there. Very typical kind of classical ending. And to get into the MIDI information, so you can see a little bit. So I'm starting with the high strings, first violin and second violin create a clear dominant chord situation there with the C and the E. And for the second violin here, I played in the trill, and for the first one, I used a sample just to create more individuality between those two players. And again, here, if we look at it, here the notes are the same for the violin, so they start off on a different note to imply the new chord. And then, 1 second, I'm just going to play those two together. First violin going up towards the tonic, and the second violin going down. The viola and the cello just filling in the missing notes of the chords. And a soft ending there. All together, one more time. So, and then there was a little bit of a fun thing to do right in the end of that spot. There were like 10 seconds where a logo comes on, etc. And they wanted me to use the string quartet, but within a complete different context and genre. I'm just going to play this for you quickly. So that's that. And before I play you the whole piece one more time, I'm going to show you quickly how I've mixed this. So as you might have seen, I've panned this all into the correct position. So I'm going for a classical, typical setup. So my first violin is slightly to the left, then is my second violin, viola, and then cello. And then putting this all through a bus, apart from the end music here, that I have a separate bus. And then I'm compressing this slightly. So if we go to the loudest part, I think around here. Just a very soft mastering compression, just with a mid ratio 4:1. So it's not really kind of compressing it too hard because it's a dynamic classical piece. And in the end part, I'm just compressing it a little harsher and adding a slight more output level. And then I would usually just put on a limiter and bring it up to that certain level. I'm not using reverb now. Actually, that sounded quite nice, but for the delivery, I've used this VSS3 and I used this hotel lobby preset there because the scene was in a hotel lobby, and it sounded quite nice. Anyway, here it is, the whole piece one more time. If you have any questions, please let us know in the comment section, and I'd be curious to see how you solve kind of difficult or tricky briefs. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.